Namaste to all, and I'm very happy to be presenting here today. Uh, Last time in the same conference, I had presented about Agastya, and I came up with an evidence, and that was a solid evidence from Parashar Tantra, where Agastya was crossing Vindhya, and that was not a physical Agastya, but I identified it as Canopus Agastya, which was happening during 19,000 BCE. So that was a concrete evidence from the Sanskrit text. Parashar Tantra was astronomical text, and that was being translated by Sri R.N. Iyengarji. And that gave us a clue to all the stories which were present in Ramayana, Mahabharata, and as well as all the Puranas, where we all know how Agastya was crossing Vindhya and how he turned the mountain down. But that story was astral story, and that could not have happened later to 19,000 BCE. So that old is our civilization, and that old are our memories. So once I came across a Scientific American newspaper where it described that how the aboriginals of Australia have the memory of around 10,000 years ago about the deluge of one place in Australia. And that is now scientifically proven that that was through the oral tradition, they had that old memory. But in our Indian context, when we come across such beautiful stories inside the Puranas, where we find Agastya story, something like a story in Rigveda itself as a myth, that is the Agastya Lopamudra story. We come across so many rishis as well. And eventually we find that Saptarishi, the word itself, is present in Rigveda, in the 10th mandala. So how old is this Saptarishi culture is? Now we already got the hint that in the Purana, when we have such old memory of Agastya crossing Vindhya, and the Canopus was crossing Vindhya while it was coursing south, it could be of 19,000 BCE, then how old the Saptarishi system is within us as a memory. So that is what I started going back into all the scriptures, including Rigveda, and I found, and Brahmanas, and I found interesting evidence regarding the Saptarshis and Krittikas, and that goes beyond and beyond our kind of imagination, and that goes beyond into such kind of time where we find the Paleolithic culture. Now, Vedvir Aryaji gave a presentation where he said that 34 ribs, he said about the 34 ribs of the horse. And you won't imagine that in that shloka, there was a word swadhiti. Now, what does swadhiti means? Swadhiti. यानी कि हाथ से पकड़ा हुआ पत्थर, उससे वो चिजल कर रहे थे. I will be going little bilingual so that you enjoy that also. So it was a hand axe, and this hand axe culture in India, the Swanean culture, if you go into the archaeology, you will find that it is going from beyond 8 lakh years. And can you imagine that word Swadhiti is present in all the mandalas? And the Neolithic culture, the Asi, that comes like a kind of knife. With the help of that, they were chiseling the horse flesh. That Asi, or the knife word, which comes in Rigveda, can be very old, older to Neolithic times, and into the microliths after the Swanean culture. So these two kind of things mixed in the 10th mandala. So even the archaeological finds are corroborating Rigveda to be very, very old. So those times are something so beyond our imagination. Our sages were looking at the stars, and why not? That was their pastime. Because our pastime is all social medias and not the sky, but their pastime was sky. So they were observing very keenly, and they were having many questions like the cosmic evolution and whatever is happening around, and why the seasons are happening around, what kind of seasons are happening around. And you will find in Rig Veda that the seasons were growing. The first seasons that were mentioned is only 3 seasons in Rig Veda. It grows to 5 seasons. And Hemanta word doesn't appear in Rig Veda. It appears as Hema. So like Vedvir Aryaji said that Jivem Sharadaha Shatam. So it was happening, the new year was happening probably from the Sharad season, autumnal equinox. No, it was not. I disagree a little bit with him here. Why? Because New Year was always beginning from the vernal equinox. And that will also solve a little bit about what I am trying to say today about Saptarshis and Krittikas. Now, today my presentation is on one memory of, it is a memory of one cycle of precession of equinoxes and earliest migration towards Europe. So Saptarishi culture, which went towards Europe, and you would find some of the cave art that came up with the swastikas, which is related to Saptarishis. So I'll go ahead. So today's talk will almost cover these 3 things. Saptarishis, the concept of Krittikas as Saptamatrikas and Shadmatrika system identified from Brahmanas, and the myth. There is a myth of Krittikas and Skanda getting born. That myth decodes the timeline of previous cycle of precession of equinoxes. That is almost like 26,000 years ago. One event was happening. So today I will discuss that. To let you know that Earth always points towards a pole star, and at different point of time, while processing, it always points to different pole stars. So in today's time, it is pointing towards Polaris. Polaris is nothing but small dipper, and which is called, in Sanskrit if we say, it is a small riksha, that is a little bear. So in Satapatha Brahmana, 7 rishis, the group of stars in Great Bear, that is Big Dipper constellation, are mentioned as riksha. And probably this is the word which traveled to Europe also, and they have this bear culture. Till to this date, their aboriginals and the tribal people, they still use this culture as their one of the event in the year, something like Halloween. And Shatapat remembers that the 7 rishis were formerly called Riksha. This is Saptarishin Uha Sma Vai Pura Riksha Itya Achakshate. And the other Anuvak says, and on the other hand, why he should not set the fires under the Krittikas. And here we get the connection between the Krittikas and the Saptarishis. How? It is given here. For the 7 rishis were in former times were called Rikshas. Now, I already told you that in Rig Veda, Saptarishi word had already appeared. But the Rig Veda also has the Riksha word, which Shatapatha itself is mentioning. Riksha means bear, that is a kind of iconography that was given in the sky to identify a group of stars. Now this is how it would look. The 2 rikshas, the Big Dipper and Small Dipper. So if you go into the Ptolemaic chart, you will find that these 2 rikshas are present there. So how old are these iconographies? So this is the Saptarishi, what you can see here. I pointed it out. And this is how the pole star, I have shown here Tuban's time, that was 3000 BCE. The rikshas come very near to the pole point. This Thuban time is the time when the Krittikas are rising in the east. This is also being mentioned in Satapatha Brahmana. Now, what is the connection between Saptarishi and the pole point? So, there is a very famous verse that comes, Brahma Rashir Vishuddhascha Shuddhascha Paramarshaya Archishmanta Prakashante Dhruvam Sarve Pradakshinam. This says that there is a Brahma Rashi and there is a Saptarishi which is revolving around the Brahma Rashi. And Brahma Rashi is a kind of a pole star. It was a pole star in the name Brahma Rashi. So whatever is in the North Celestial Pole Circle, which I showed you the first slide, the pointing of the pole stars during different times, these are all the Brahma stars, you know. And one of the very specific Brahma star was Vega, and that was known as Abhijit in Taittiriya Brahmana also, and in many other places like Ramayana and Mahabharata. In Surya Siddhanta also, the mention is given how the pole star has to be placed, where it has to be placed. So here Abhijit is being given. Here in the Yamya Gola Sthana, that is in the southern side, how the Agastya has to be placed, how the Saptarishis has to be placed, how the Abhijit has to be placed in the north. For this, Burgess has noted that this is kind of an absurd thinking by Surya Siddhanta, but Surya Siddhanta gives this evidence that during 12,000 BCE, Abhijit was the north pole star and Agastya was the south pole star, and those two pole stars made completed this verse in Goladhyaya. So two of the evidence takes us to 12,000 BCE. So these two evidence can only happen during 12,000 BCE. Now, going back to Saptarishi again, how does it works actually? So if you see, during 1500 BCE, all the Saptarishis, while rising in the east, then during the autumn, summer solstice, then during the fall, and then during the winters, I have shown the 4 cardinal points, that is the vernal equinox, summer solstice, autumnal equinox, and winter solstice. These 4 points will make this shape. So the famous swastika, how it comes. So when you go to the 2000 BC, the Saptarishis have come little nearer to the pole point. Then as we go to 3000 BC, now it is coming more nearer. And during 4000 BC, now it is expanding, started expanding, and again starts expanding. So when it comes the most nearest is during the Thuban times, that is 3000 BCE. In 7000 BC, it goes little away. In 8000 BC, more away. And Saptarishis are very farthest during 12,000 BCE. After that, it remains to be very away from the pole point, and again it starts contracting during 21,000 BC. So if we come back from 21,000 BC, we will see that it has expanded, and again it has contracted. So you can imagine that how old our swastika could have been, because the sign swastika comes from Su-asti, and that comes from the Saptarishis itself. So it says that may all the 4 cardinal points be auspicious for our well-being. So this is the 4 cardinal points, means all the 4 portions of the year. All the whole year should be auspicious. So again I'm going a little more back, and again I'm showing that how it was happening, and then again in first CE, it comes nearer and it's coming nearer again. But this similar shape of whose? Saptarishi and Krittikas. Now if you remember, you just go back to that slide in your memory. I've shown you that Saptarishi and Krittikas are connected. Why they are connected? Why the need of a myth with Krittikas arise? So one point was because it was during the Thuban times when the Krittikas were rising in the east, and the second thing is that both of their shapes are very similar. So Saptarshis, that is the question mark. If you go out in the night time, you can see during the spring season how it rises, then during the summer solstice time, summer season, how it rises, and during the winter's time how it is falling down, autumnal time, and how in the winters it is like cannot be seen from some of the latitudes. So this is how the one question mark that you see in the sky is Saptarishi. Now if you zoom into the Krittikas, that also has a shape of ladle, and there is an involvement of a myth. So how myth begins in our culture, why these were needed. So if you see there are 7 stars here, and you see there are 6 stars shining here. So we have Shadmatrika and Saptamatrika system. Why I say these two systems? Because these are mentioned in different texts all around, and we need to segregate what these systems were. So before going to that, let us understand what the precession of equinoxes means. So I'm doing it here on PDF, otherwise I was having a video how it goes. Like if the vernal equinox point is pointing towards Ashwin, the similar will, summer solstice will also point once at Ashwin. Autumnal will also come to here in 13,000 years, and again winter solstice will come in like 21,000 years. So likewise it completes, again it comes to vernal, that means 26,000 years of precession of equinoxes. So do we have a memory where Krittikas were experiencing the summers also, the autumnal equinox also, or was it experiencing the vernal equinox of this time or the earlier time? What kind of memory our Brahmanas have? So the myth that came up here is the time when the Krittikas are rising in the east. And the myth is about the Skanda's birth. So during this time, again going back to the same slide, during this time we need to understand what is the connection of Saptarishis with Krittikas. So the classical literature mentions Krittikas as 6. The earlier tradition counted them as 7. It was said that Krittikas are 6, but when they ascended into the heaven, so now here it is very important to understand what is the heaven and what is the Asura portion, what is the Devas portion and what is the Asuras portion, what is the Saumya, what is the Yamya, what does these words mean in astronomy. So it does mean about the northern hemisphere and the southern hemisphere and the northern celestial hemisphere and the southern celestial hemisphere. Now if the Krittikas are 6, what is it trying to say? And then when they ascended to heaven, what is it trying to say? So this is the evidence of vernal equinox in Krittikas. So whenever the Agni has to be prajwalita under some asterism, it means that this is the vernal equinox point. So Agni, the word is the synonym of vernal equinox, and you can find this evidence in many of my talks also, and also in my blogs and research paper. So vernal equinox is a synonym, has a synonym in Sanskrit which is known as Agni. So there has been too many debates about Uttarayan and Dakshinayan and all, but the Vedic Ayan always used to happen from vernal equinox. Then the 7 stars named as Amba, Dula, Nitatni, Abhrayanti, Meghayanti, Varshayanti, and Chupunika, this is the evidence of Krittikas experiencing summer solstice. Because after the summer solstice, that is 21st June, the rainy season starts. So that is the beginning of the rainy season. So it is talking about the 7 matrikas who are nothing but experiencing, they are giving, they are like Megha, they are like Abhra, they are like raining. So it is definitely experiencing the summer solstice. And you would you would astonish that Kritikas have not experienced summer solstice from 22,000 BCE till to this date. There are still some thousands years remaining for Kritika to experience summers. So this is happening during the previous cycle. This memory is from, in Taittiriya Brahmana, this memory is from 22,000 BCE. So I will just show you how. And again, after this, this is happening, another myth of Arundhati is coming in. So how to balance the 6 Kritikas and 7 Kritikas? So the Ambai Dulai thing, that is happening during 22,000 BCE, and after that Arundhati is introduced. Now when Arundhati is being introduced, during that time there were no pole stars available, and Arundhati's magnitude is such, very faint star with Vashishta in the question mark kind of a star cluster that I showed you as a Saptarishi. It has Arundhati with Vashishta, and that is this, another myth that gets created. And this is during the Siddhantic time it gets created, because Arundhati is not mentioned in Rig Veda. So it comes in Taittiriya Brahmana, and we get the evidence in Ashwalayan Griha Sutra, where it says that once you see the pole star, you have to again see towards the Arundhati, so that the magnitude are being, sense of magnitude are being captured, and so that you can locate the pole star there. So the phrase in Taittiriya Brahmana, different anuvaks, there are many statements. So Mukham va etat, the verse that goes, is for 28 nakshatra system, and that was happening during 28,260 BCE, and this has been evaluated with the help of Voyager simulation. Other than that, Abhrayanti, Swaha, Meghayanti, and Chupunikai, and Ambai, and all these names which refer to being a cloud and the one which will give rains, the kind of Matrika who will be giving rains, can only happen during 22,000 BC and plus in deep antiquity, not in today's time, because it is yet to experience summer solstice. So when Agni didn't appear, so Deva vai Bhadraha Santo Agni Madhistasthana, that is, auspicious gods wished to contact Agni, but the Agni didn't appear. So Kritikas are like connected with the story of Agni. They were giving birth to Agni, and many must have listened to this story and must have seen the serials and our television, where how Agni was having six Agnis were correlated to one Agni, and how Skanda was born. So the Kritika, the son of Kritikas are Skanda, who is also known as Vishakha. So you will be amazed that when I showed you precision of equinox cycle there the Kritikas were there, and just opposite of the Kritika is the Vishakha nakshatra. So Vishakha nakshatra is nothing but Vishakha, and it was known as Vishakha also, and that is the son of Kritikas. When it was getting birth and it was becoming Agni, that means the point of vernal equinox, that is the same story, and that cannot happen later to 16,000 BCE. So 16 to 15,000 BCE, the Skanda is getting born. But to my astonishment, there are so many discoveries in Rig Veda, which takes me to 34,000 BC with the king Brihadratha and his story mentioned, his stories mentioned in Maitrayani Upanishad. His dialogues are mentioned in Maitrayani Upanishad. And that takes to, with the help of nakshatra, that is also very concrete and solid evidence from Maitrayani Upanishad, taking back to 34,500 BC. And you would be amazed that there is a mention of Kumaram getting birth as Agni in Rig Veda also. So this is kind of a cycle, a cyclic kind of thing that was happening with the Kritikas and Vishakha and the son Vishakha, and that was the main story of Skanda's birth from Kritika, and that is what is coming as an evidence from vernal equinox to autumnal equinox. It is Saptamatrika system. And again, from autumnal equinox to vernal equinox, that has just went away during 3000 BCE, was the Shadamatrika system. And again, in IVC seals, you will find that the Saptamatrika systems have again evolved. So these are the very basic and concrete evidence that we need to recollect and again establish the chronology of our events in the Brahmanas and Rig Vedas itself. So this is that old. So I'm looking into the text with the help of so many evidence, like from the genetics point of view and whatnot. And as R1b and R1a was discussed by one of our professors here, that is very true, that the migration was out of India. And during this time, what we are seeing, the swastika thing, and how these signs went out of our culture into the European countries, that must be around like before 26,000 years ago. So what I talked about today is this timeline that I have created with the help of River Saraswati and many, many evidence from the Rig Veda itself and Brahmanas itself. And today I discussed two things, like Kritika at autumnal and Skanda getting birth at vernal. That was happening during 15,000 BCE. And the other thing was happening, Kritikas as summer, during 26 to 29,000 BCE, and especially during 22,000 BCE. And the vernal and summer was happening during this 29,000 to 26,000 BCE time frame. So what was the purpose? It was the purpose to know half of the precision was belonging to the 7 Matrika systems, and half of the precision, that is 13,000 years, was belonging to 6 Matrika system. With the help of these beautiful myths which has been created, not only in Brahmana, but also in Mahabharata, and there is a Indra Skanda Samvada, and it shows the same vigor of the storytelling. Only the thing is that we need to connect these stories with the help of Brahmanas and Rig Veda. So this is today's discussion. Saptarshis are at least 29,000 years old, and Rikshas are more older. So we don't know how many years we have been observing the sky. The concept of Kritikas as Saptamatrika and Shadmatrika system identified from Brahmanas are evidence of internal edits and are older than 29,000 years old. And the myth of Skanda's birth, that is Vishakha at vernal, is entwined with astral phenomena during 15,000 BCE, or is a repeated myth of previous cycle which occurred around 41,000 years ago. This is the time when many of us had migrated towards Europe, and probably Neanderthals went away or vanished. So I will end up here. Thank you so much.